Did you know that a baby can get a sunburn in just 15 minutes? With extreme heat waves on the rise and UV radiation being stronger than ever, sun safety isn't just important, it's critical for parents to know about. Babies and young kids are especially vulnerable because their skin is thinner and more sensitive. The scary part is, studies have shown that childhood sunburns increase the risk of skin cancer later on in life. As a new mom to a 7-month-old, it's something I take seriously, and I hope you will too. In this video, I'm breaking down exactly how to protect our little ones from the sun, from understanding the UV index to choosing the safest sunscreens and much more. So let's get into it. So why are babies at higher risk? Their skin is thinner and more sensitive than adults, so that means that they burn much more easily. They also have more skin surface area compared to their body size, so the effect of a sunburn can be much more serious compared to an adult. And finally, babies can't tell you when they're overheating or too hot, and they can't move themselves into the shade. So it's easy to miss these signs of overheating or sunburns. And I mentioned earlier that they can burn in as little as 15 minutes, depending on the UV index, which I'll get into. So what is the UV index? It ranges from 0 to 11 plus and would be available on your local weather report when the index is 1 or higher. So from 0 to 2, that indicates a low risk, and generally no protection or minimal protection is needed. Between 3 to 7, that would be moderate to high risk, and sun protection is always recommended. From 8 onwards, so 8 to 11 plus, that indicates very high to extreme risk of UV radiation. So you're going to need extra protection. UVB rays are the ones that typically cause sunburns, and they're strongest from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., so midday. This also happens to be the hottest time of the day, so try to avoid being in the sun during that period if at all possible. Even on cloudy days, UV rays still get through and can cause sun damage and sunburns, so make sure you're staying protected. So what are the best ways to protect your baby from the sun? Number 1 is to avoid peak sun hours, as I mentioned, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And if you're going to go for a walk or an outing, opt for morning or late afternoon outings when it's a little bit cooler. Next, you want to keep babies in the shade as much as possible, especially when they're napping. We really like to use our stroller sunshade to keep our baby out of the sun, and it works really well. You also want to try to dress them in loose, lightweight cotton clothing as much as possible that will cover up their arms and their legs. It's always recommended to use a wide-brimmed hat, and ideally one with a flap to cover the back of the neck. And make sure you never leave babies in parked cars to get them out of the sun, even if you're in there with them, because temperatures can climb fast in the car and they're more sensitive to it. One of the most important things is to make sure that you keep your baby hydrated, and depending on your baby, this can be breast milk, formula, or cool sips of water. Generally, they need to be 6 months or older to give them any water, but you can always check with your healthcare provider to see what's the best way to keep them hydrated. Sunscreen isn't usually recommended for babies under 6 months old, but once they pass that age, you can start using one. Generally, mineral sunscreens are recommended because they're more gentle on the skin and have a lower risk of causing allergic reactions. And I'll show you how to tell the difference between a mineral or physical sunscreen and a chemical sunscreen shortly. And just a quick car safety tip in the heat: make sure that you're checking your buckles before strapping your baby into the car seat, because the metal pieces can heat up really, really hot and cause burns. And I've seen babies have that happen, so just be careful. So now let's talk about sunscreen. What is the main purpose of sunscreen? It helps protect against 3 things. So sunburns, skin cancer, and premature aging. So which one should you choose? There are so many options out there, and if you go to any store like Walmart, you're going to see a whole aisle full of sunscreens. So you want to pick a broad spectrum sunscreen with an SPF of 30 or higher, and ideally something that is fragrance free. So what does broad spectrum actually mean? It means that it protects against both UVA and UVB radiation. So UVB rays are the ones that mainly cause sunburns, while UVA mainly causes things like aging and wrinkles. But both types can increase your risk of skin cancer, such as basal cell carcinoma and malignant melanomas. So make sure that you find somewhere on the label that the sunscreen is broad spectrum and covers both UVA and UVB. Next, let's talk about SPF. What does the number actually mean? So the higher the number, the the better the protection against UVB rays. Again, those are the rays that are responsible for causing sunburns. So just to give you an idea, SPF 30 sunscreens will block about 97% of UVB rays. SPF 50 will block about 98%, and SPF 100 is going to block up to 99%. So beyond SPF 30, you can see that you're not getting much of a bump in additional benefit. And that's why you don't need to fuss too much or spend a fortune on getting the super high SPF sunscreens. No sunscreen is going to block 100% of UV rays. The top two things you need to remember to most effectively use your sunscreens is number one, apply it generously and evenly, at least 15 minutes before sun exposure. Number two, you need to reapply sunscreen every 2 hours without compromise. You may even need to apply more frequently if you're going to be swimming or sweating heavily or toweling off, for example. And that's because, again, no sunscreen protects you 100% and it wears off over time. So you want to make sure that you have enough on your skin to protect you at all times. If you do a lot of outdoor activities in the hot sun or have a fair skin complexion, you may want to opt for a slightly higher SPF like 50 or 60, or you can ask your doctor or healthcare provider about that. And that's because you're at higher risk of sunburns. Remember that more SPF does not mean that you can stay in the sun longer without reapplying. This is a common misconception and unfortunately leads to lots of sunburns and long-term skin damage. So now let's talk about types of sunscreens. I mentioned there are chemical sunscreens and mineral or physical sunscreens. So chemical sunscreens work by absorbing the UV rays in place of your skin so that your skin is not affected. So these chemicals can include examples like avobenzone, oxybenzone, and there's a whole list of them. Mineral or physical sunscreens are a little bit different because they work by reflecting away the UV rays so that your skin does not absorb it. The two main minerals that sunscreens use are zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. For babies, mineral sunscreens are usually recommended, and I actually purchased this one by Aveeno, and this one is specifically marketed for babies, and it's zinc oxide based, and you can see here that it does specify that it provides both UVA and UVB protection, so it's broad spectrum. Fragrance free, which is great because babies tend to be more sensitive to perfumes and things like that and can have reactions. It's a little bit thicker in consistency because of the mineral in it, but it's going to provide really good protection. I actually purchased it from Walmart. It's also available on Amazon if you're interested, but this one's an SPF 50. When you're trying a sunscreen for the very first time, especially on babies and children, it's recommended to do something called a patch test. So what it means is that you're going to apply a small amount of the sunscreen to the inner forearm, so this area here, and you're going to wait about 48 hours to monitor for any reaction. If you notice that they develop like an itchy rash or some sort of reaction, you're going to want to stop using it and potentially try something different. And you can always get the opinion of your healthcare provider, see if they suggest anything. A couple of other quick tips while you're at the store is that you want to make sure that it's not expired because then it may not work effectively. And you want to store it as much as possible in a cool, dry place so that the ingredients stay intact. So in conjunction with using sunscreen, there are several things that you need to do as well. So it's recommended to also use an SPF 30 lip balm to cover up any exposed lips because skin cancer can affect lips as well. That is also part of your skin. You want to focus your sunscreen on easy to burn areas. So especially things like the face where the skin is a lot thinner, your ears, which I often forget about, neck, shoulders, your back, which you often can't reach. So you might need help with that, or you can do that for your kids. And then your knees and tops of your feet. So really every surface that's going to be exposed to the sun with particular attention to those areas. Again, sunscreen should always be combined with other measures, including protective clothing, wide-brimmed hats, staying in the shade as much as possible, especially during peak sun hours, and wearing UV protection sunglasses. So now that we've talked about sun protection, we also want to talk about how to watch for signs of heat exhaustion. In Canada this summer already, the heat waves have been pretty bad, and I know that it's been affecting a lot of other countries. So these are the signs that you want to watch out for, especially in your baby and your children. So things like excessive thirst, fatigue, cool or clammy skin, stomach or leg cramps. If you do notice these signs or symptoms, move them to a cool place, remove any extra clothing to cool them off, and offer frequent hydration. And if your baby, especially if they're under 1 year old, develops a severe sunburn, you need to seek medical attention right away because that's considered an emergency. I mentioned earlier that because their surface area to body ratio is a lot larger, sunburns can be a lot more serious in babies and children. So we talked about how babies and young kids are especially vulnerable to UV damage and overheating. So a little planning can really go a long way as parents. Stay cool, stay shaded, and keep everyone hydrated. And remember that sunscreen is just one part of effective sun care. If you'd like a quick summary of what we discussed, I'll link a free tip sheet below in the description box, so you can grab that afterwards and print it off if you'd like. I hope this video gave you the information to feel more confident about protecting your baby during these hot, sunny months. And if you found it helpful, please consider sharing it with another parent who might need this information as well. Thanks so much for watching, and take care.